A year ago, August the 2nd, 2020, in the downstairs lobby of this building, the 9th President of the 12th Parliament was sworn in within hours of the declaration of the election results, and after a 5-month wait fraught with repeated attempts to assault democracy and the will of the people to choose the government of their choice. That afternoon, the cry across the country was resounding: democracy has prevailed. Ironic it is that all this took place a day after the 186th anniversary of emancipation, when the cries of freedom rang out across this land. August the 2nd, 2020 is a landmark day in our country's history. It will always be remembered as the day that democracy, the rule of law, and our one Guyana triumphed. At no time in our history was there such a combination of individuals, civil society bodies, the PPPC and the small parties and their supporters, the media and the regional and international organizations and individual nations that stood together to defeat the repeated efforts to hijack the elections and overthrow democracy, the Constitution, and the rule of law. Mr. Speaker, we were tested, and the resilience and discipline of our people, the strength of our constitutional, and the professionalism of the institutions of the judiciary and the security forces, despite many provocations and pressures, prevailed for the long 5 months. This mass awakening in defense of democracy, Mr. Speaker, bodes well for our young emerging nation. We promised on the election campaign and in our manifesto that we would put our country on the cusp of massive socioeconomic transformation that can take us to new heights of prosperity. Our government's commitment to attaining this promising future was immediately seen in the passing of the $330 billion emergency budget within 1 month of assuming office. We said then that our focus was on righting the economy and addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, which had been woefully handled. This was followed by a $383 billion budget less than 6 months later in 2021. Our focus has been on preparing the foundation for the expansion of the socioeconomic base of a modern Guyana. Catering for our citizens first and foremost, these budgets provided for tax relief, the stabilization of our economy, the restoration of critical programs and infrastructure works, and in doing so, creating jobs, and most pressingly, relief for our citizens in the pandemic, amid the pandemic. And so, in the past year, the PPC administration stayed true to its promises and ensured that every initiative, every investment made to date has strategically been setting the stage for Guyana's development and improved quality of lives for our people. In 365 days, we have accomplished in 1 year what another government, who we all know about, could not do in its 5-year term of office. All of this has taken place in the midst of 2 major disasters, neither of our making: COVID-19 pandemic and the unprecedented flooding in the April, May, June in all 10 regions of Guyana. We did not create these challenges, but we confronted them. Measures to combat COVID-19 were of utmost priority. Urgent and large purchases of drugs and medical supplies in short supply across the country, including PPEs, COVID-19 testing reagents and equipment, and the procurement of vaccines, which were in short supply globally, especially for developing countries. We've updated the COVID-19 action plan while continuing to roll out the vaccines for the adult population and trying to reach the 80% adult coverage. Vaccines will be available to children between the ages of 12 and 18. Recognizing the devastating impact of COVID-19 on families and communities, The new government also introduced a 25,000 COVID-19 household relief grant to households across Guyana. And by the end of the second phase, more than $8 billion have been put into the hands of people across the country. And of course, this does not leave COVID relief hampers that were distributed to the poor and the vulnerable. Hundreds of millions have been spent to keep children in a learning environment as a result of COVID-19. On coming into office, the government sought to find new initiatives to help children remain in a learning environment with the use of the Learning Channel, printing of hundreds of thousands of workbooks and learning tools distributed to children across the country. The torrential April-May-June rainfall of 2021 caused massive flooding and severely affected more than 51,000 citizens countrywide. Considering this is the worst disaster Guyana has ever seen, the government responded with efficiency and alacrity and visibility, including the visibility of the highest post holder in our country, the President. Through the work of the Civil Defense Commission and other critical institutions, hundreds of persons were immediately evacuated and over 83,000 hampers of food and cleaning supplies were distributed to affected persons, and more are being distributed as people are in the recovery period. 23 billion in supplementary funding was obtained for relief measures, among which included allocations to support affecting households and farmers, including 7.5 billion, and repairing of infrastructure damaged by the nationwide flooding. In the midst of these unprecedented situations, the administration remained conscious of the need for reliable access to information for our citizens. From realizing the long-awaited liberalization of the telecommunications sector to reforming the government agencies and the implementation of ICT Access and e-Services project, which provides for 200 ICT hubs in the hinterland and riverine communities. Our government focuses on ensuring that our people are informed and therefore empowered. We have also created new opportunities for fiber optic cables, reduced cost of bandwidth, reduced cost of data, so that our ICT environment will also become competitive and more affordable to our people. Apart from these initiatives, the transformation seen under the PPP government within the last year alone is historic. In every sector, there's been transformative shifts for the better. Increased economic development, a revitalized health sector, resuscitation of the national housing drive, resuscitation of the sugar industry, job creating, mass investments in education through scholarships, grants, and loans, transformative infrastructure, investment in cheap and more reliable electricity, investments in youth development, investments in Amerindian communities, developments in the natural resources sector to secure our future as an oil and gas producing nation. Whilst the government has laid the foundation for the transformative agenda in its first year, we have also transferred billions of dollars directly to the people of Guyana. And maybe I will give some examples of a few initiatives, not all. One, we restored and increased the annual cash grants for Because We Care program and school uniforms as promised. $3.3 billion will go into the hands of parents of these children. And in fact, we have completed Region 2, Region 10, Region 9, and we are completing Region 3 and 4 right now. Commence the phased increase of old age pension by injecting an additional $4 billion annually in disposable income for senior citizens and reintroduce the water subsidy. 3, increase public assistance from $9,000 to $12,000 monthly, providing an additional $500 million in income support to beneficiaries. 4, reduce land rentals for farmers, releasing $1.4 billion annually back to the farmers. 5, reintroduce the year-end bonus for members of the disciplined forces, paying out more than $500 million to our men and women in uniform in the last budget. 6, launched a special one-off grant to frontline health workers to the tune of $3 billion. 7, remove the draconian APNU AFC taxes placed on the people of Guyana, including VAT on electricity, water, education, drugs, and medical supplies, basic wholesale necessities, data for residential and individual tax use, basic construction materials and heavy equipment for industry. 8, made home ownership more affordable, restoring the 30 million ceiling on mortgage interest relief and increasing the ceiling on low-income housing loans from 8 to 12 million. 9, allocated $120 million for programs supporting the community of persons living with disabilities and a further $50 million to organizations working in victims of domestic violence. Strengthening the Amerindian village economy through the Economic Investment Fund, the transfer of funds to each of the 229 Amerindian communities across Guyana, totaling $1.732 billion, as well as the provision of tractors, ATVs, and other equipment to help in their economic advancement. These measures injected, notice I said injected, I didn't say we're doing it, they have been already injected, well over $50 billion into the economy, improving household disposable income, as well as injecting liquidity in the economy. Housing, critical to people's welfare. The government restored the housing program, and more than $14 billion has been invested. So far, the housing has processed almost 2,000 titles, transports, and commenced construction of almost 1,000 low, moderate, and young professional houses, and the process of designing and implementing infrastructure works to see the allocation of another 10,000 in the coming year. The government reinvested in sugar and reopened the industry, returned jobs, and brought back vibrancy to many communities. The conceptual planning for Wales development is in the final stage of completion. In addition, the government restored the Community Service Officer Program and 2,000 Amerindian jobs which were wiped out by the APNU AFC government in 2015. Various initiatives are in progress to restore Linden and the bauxite sector that also collapsed under the former government. A rapid expansion of Guyana's physical infrastructure has already been launched with the aim of improving our relations with our neighboring and trading countries, as well as expanding the economic space in which we operate, opening up new lands to unleash productive potential, improving internal connectivity to enhance citizen and commuter convenience. Maybe I should list some of the issues here. These include key projects that are already underway. So these are not dreams, these are not pieces of paper, these are things that are in progress, such as the Lethem to Linden Road, the Quarantine River Bridge in partnership with our Surinamese neighbors, enhancing private sector capacity to service the oil and gas, private sector investment to construct multiple shore-based and deep-water facilities at the mouths of the Demerara and Berbice rivers, expansion of access to productive land for agriculture and other productive purposes has commenced. For example, the number 58 to Kanji Creek Road, Parika to Goshen Road, the Timeri to Bartica link. The new bridge across the Demerara River has already been tendered and is expected to open on October 3rd, 2021. The design of the new road from Shunad to Parika is in progress. The new highway from Eccles to Mandela is expected to be completed by year end. Design and costing is completed for the Eccles to Diamond Highway. Ogle to Eccles Highway is expected to be awarded by the end of this quarter. Efforts to secure financing for the Ogle to Diamond and from Diamond to Timeri phases of this project have also commenced, with a feasibility study already completed. The rehabilitation of Suzdijk to Linden Highway has commenced. Right across the country in all 10 regions, there are works going on community, bridges, roads, streets, in residential areas and in farming areas. The city and country is alive. And one of course, the goals is the preparation of a work of a new city, which for now is called Silica City, is in the planning stage with surveys and land acquisition being pursued. Again, this is not a pipe dream, this is reality. In addition, investments have commenced that would see many new internationally branded hotels and modern health facilities coming on stream. There is no doubt that the physical landscape of our country is changing dramatically. In this endeavor, we have to deal with the energy sector and recognize the importance of this for the advancement of our economy and our society. The government has commenced investment in this sector, aiming for a new generation capacity of at least 500 megawatts in the immediate term, with the option to expand this further in the long term. Major initiatives in this sector will include gas to shore project terminating at the Wales Development Authority and a new power generation from the Amaila Falls hydropower project, which, my dear friends in the Parliament, is back on the agenda after being sabotaged in 2014 by the then opposition, the APNU AFC. Work in all of these areas have commenced at various stages, and the final outcome would see energy costs being slashed by 50% before the end of 2024. I know some of these things are difficult to swallow because you know what you didn't do in 5 years. You didn't do. Preparing our resilience to disasters due to climate change in our geography, work will continue on reinforcing our sea and coastal defenses, including the construction of 3 new major outfalls similar to the Hope Canal, 1 in each of the regions 3, 5, and 6. Planning is commenced on a massive project to relieve South Georgetown from flooding with the construction of a new drainage system and other infrastructure to facilitate this time. Also, other areas of the city will also come under examination for reducing flooding. This is within the context of expanded low-carbon development strategy, which you abandon also, which will go through a consultative process as with the original LCDS in 2010, which, of course, the Green Development Strategy, no one ever saw the document at all. We don't know what it said. It will focus on ensuring that our vast standing forest resource is adequately remunerated for the global climate service it is providing, as well as ensuring that the vast potential of the blue economy is harnessed for national development. In order to prepare the country for its economic takeoff, requires critical investment in our human resources. In order to ensure that every single Guyanese of employable age is adequately equipped to obtain gainful employment, a vast transformation of our human resources will be imperative. And therefore, here are some new initiatives that we introduced and are already in train. 20,000 online scholarships, gold scholarships, over the next 5 years, with the first batch of 6,000 Guyanese emanating from all 10 regions, emphasis all 10 regions, being awarded before the end of this year. Rapid training of at least 3,000 Guyanese to work in the expanding hospitality and tourism sector in anticipation of the new hotels. Strengthening technical and vocational education and promoting on-the-job training through apprenticeships. Recognizing that women face additional burdens. Programs such as WIN and GWLI focuses on training women and developing entrepreneurial skills and hopefully new businesses with women leading it. Discussions are in the final stage towards the establishment of a world-class oil and gas institute to serve as a center of excellence for training of personnel for the oil and gas sector in Guyana, regionally and worldwide. With regard to the security sector, the government has already commenced a program that will see the modernization of the sector, improvement of the welfare and working conditions of those in the sector, and institutional strengthening to aid transparency, efficiency, and accountability have already begun. Work has commenced on the building of 3 new prison blocks that will house 900 prisoners in Lusingnam, and the resourcing of equipment to enhance the capabilities of crime fighters. Through this rapid transformation that the country is witnessing, the government is committed to ensure that no one is left behind, and that social welfare continues to be improved, that no one has been discriminated against in accessing all the goods and services we have offered in this last year. Reducing the cost of bureaucracy and red tape, as well as reduce the hurdles people have to go through to carry out their daily business with government agencies, are critical. Hence, a number of amendments to legislation are before the House to assist our citizens in this regard. It is anticipated that this National Assembly, which will celebrate its first anniversary on September the 1st, and Mr. Speaker, you will celebrate your first anniversary of being elected as Speaker of the 12th Parliament, this Parliament will be called on to address important legislative and institutional reforms to support the development aspirations of a modern Guyana and make One Guyana a reality. The establishment of the Law Reform Commission years after it was enacted in this House, and greater involvement and participation through parliamentary committees and broad-based consultations with the citizens and civil society organizations will enhance the inclusionary democracy as provided for in our Constitution. As part of our governance architecture, our institutions will also be strengthened and ensure accountability and transparent stewardship of our national patrimony and the taxpayers' money. The foundation has been laid for a rapid takeoff in 1 year. This country is alive and buzzing. We have only just begun. We have only just begun in 365 days. I call on the members of Parliament on the other side on this, our first anniversary, to join us in transforming our nation for the benefit of all our people in Guyana. Thank you.